Hello and welcome to this session. I am Mansi and today I'll be teaching you about three important Victorian writers for UGC NET exam. So let's start. This is a quick glance and overview what we'll be covering in this video. I'll introduce you to the Victorian period, the social and economic background of the time, because that's important to understand the works that were written during those times. And I'll also discuss an important work, PYQs, interesting facts about the following authors that I've mentioned here. That is Charles Dickens, Charlotte Bronte, and Alfred Lord Tennyson. And in the end, I'll also discuss some important tips for acing the UGC NET exam with you. So let's start. First, we'll talk about the Victorian period, which was from 1837 to 1901. And it's called the Victorian period because Queen Victoria was ruling England during that time. So it was a time of great economic growth. Why? Because since England was ruling the colonies, they were getting a lot of money from there because they were imposing heavy taxes and etc. I think you must be aware about it. And then there was rise in literacy as well because there was this rule that was passed in England about compulsory primary education. That is why I have also mentioned at the last point that print had to keep up with increased readership because there was a lot of literacy in England during that time. Also, there were technological discovery, science was booming, there was telephone and electrical bulb also, these things were invented. So a lot of things were happening from the ordinary traditional things during those times. And also works like Communist Manifesto and Origin of the Species were published, which were quite controversial, I would say. Why? Because these things were, challenging the traditional norms about Victorian England and tradition and Christianity also. Origin of Species was particularly very controversial because of that. So there was political and religious turmoil because of such works. Novels were very popular because most writers focused on social issues. So people loved to read more novels during that time. Now, we'll talk about our first writer, Charles Dickens. So this is a quote which I've taken from David Copperfield, which I thought would be very interesting for you all people who are preparing for exams because it talks about procrastination and sometimes we avoid work. So to just give you a boost of encouragement, I've mentioned this here. So it says, my advice is never do tomorrow what you can do today. Procrastination is the thief of time. Collar him. So I think you should take David Copperfield's advice here and you should not, postpone things for tomorrow. Just like, there's this quote by Kabir Das also, Kal kare so aaj kare so ab. So I think this is its English translation, I would say. So we'll talk about Charles Dickens, who was born in 1812 and he died in 1870. I think you all must be aware with Charles Dickens. We have read his popular work, Oliver Twist. So he was a very famous novelist, journalist, short story writer. And he was considered as the greatest novelist of Victorian period because he campaigned for children's rights, education, social reforms, and all of these things were mentioned in his works, all of the novels which he used to write during that time. And he also used his childhood experiences in his works, his personal experiences as well. So here I've mentioned some famous works, just two because we don't have a lot of time to cover everything. But this was in 1833 when his story, A Dinner at Poplar Walk, was published in Monthly Magazine. It was published later as Mr. Minns and His Cousin in Sketches by Boz. Alright. Then in 1836, his first book, The Pickwick Papers, this was published and it was about the character sketches of day-to-day ordinary people in England and it explored the adventures of London gentlemen. Alright. Now, I've chosen Oliver Twist as a work which we'll be discussing. So, Oliver Twist was published in 1838 and this novel centered around the orphan, Oliver Twist, who was born in a workhouse and later sold into apprenticeship with an undertaker. So, first he was working in a warehouse, then he was sold to someone else. Undertaker is a person who, cares for the dead bodies and puts them in coffin for funeral arrangements. So basically undertaker is that person and he was trained under that person after he was left from the workhouse. So Oliver Twist first worked in a workhouse and then he was sold into apprenticeship with an undertaker. Then he escapes this training because he didn't like it and he was not treated well. Then, because he left and he was in the streets, he met the Artful Dodger and a gang of young pickpockets led by the seasoned criminal Fagin. He fell into the wrong hands and he started pickpocketing. He was in a way, forced into it because he was on the streets and he had to fend for himself somehow. Later, it was revealed in the book that he was an illegitimate son of a man of a higher social class. So, just like in Bollywood movies, you see that there's an orphan and then he goes through a lot of trials and tribulations, and at the end, he gets a lot of money, generational wealth, and then he lives happily ever after. So that's what happened here as well. Also, this book explores the true lives of criminals and the treatment of orphans in London in the mid 19th century, because there were a lot of working class people, and because of some rules and heavy taxes, these people could not, earn a lot of money for themselves and could not eat properly and live in good working conditions. And especially because of industrialization, there was a lot of exploitation of a lot of workers during that time. So Charles Dickens, tried to uncover all of these things through this book. There are themes of poverty, condition of poor people in workhouses, and crime, and also money problems. All right. Now, I just wanted to, discuss this famous character, Artful Dodger, because this can come in your exams also. So, I have mentioned his character sketch, which was written by Charles Dickens himself, the description of his character. So, the Artful Dodger's real name was Jack Dawkins. Leader of the gang of child criminals in London, he was characterized as a child who acts like an adult, pretends like an adult. He is described as wearing adult clothes. As you can see here, he looks very small for an adult, height-wise. But his clothes are so big and they're not fitting him properly. And see, this is also written here. He is described as wearing adult clothes, which are much too large for him, as we can see in this sketch. And this is the original description of him. He was a snub-nosed, flat-brown, common-faced boy enough, and as dirty a juvenile as one would wish to see, but he had about him all the airs and manners of a man. Like, he pretended to be a man, although he was a child. He was short of his age, with rather bow legs and little sharp, ugly eyes. His hat was stuck on the top of his head. See, his hat on the top of his head, so lightly that it threatened to fall off every moment. As you can see, it's not fitting him properly, the hat. So we can see that it can fall off anytime. That's why it is said that it threatened to fall off every moment. And I just mentioned here the Artful Dodger. This is a TV series which came last year in 2023. And these are some of the images of that series. So if you are interested, you can watch it also. It helps sometimes in remembering things. But keep in mind that not all of the details will be exactly like it is mentioned in the novel. So keep that in mind. But for entertainment purposes, you can definitely watch such things. It will, create an interest in you as well. So now we'll learn about some facts about Charles Dickens. So this is quite interesting. He was also fond of acting, and he played Captain Bobadil in a stage performance of Ben Jonson's Every Man in His Humour. His best-selling novel is A Christmas Carol, which was published in 1843. It is very famous, and you must have seen a lot of references of A Christmas Carol in Ebenezer Scrooge, of that character Ebenezer Scrooge, in a lot of TV series as well. And Dickens wrote and published under the pseudonym Boz between 1833 to 34. This is important because this can come in your exams. Pseudonyms of writers are asked a lot in exams. Dickens worked 10-hour days at a shoe polishing warehouse, Warren's Blacking Warehouse, to help his family who were in the debtor's prison. So, like I said before, he took a lot of instances from his personal life, because he also, struggled a lot in his life. He used to study and he used to earn also, because his family was not very well off, because his father also, just पैसा बहा देना बोलते हैं ना, that is what he did. So that's why he was in the debtor's prison during that time. And this prison was later a setting Dickens used in Little Dorrit. It's a novel by Charles Dickens. So he used the same prison as setting in this book. Then his last novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, 1870, was unfinished because his health was not well. He was not well and his health was also deteriorating. So he died of a stroke during that year and it could not be published fully. Now this is a previous year question which came in UGC NET exam, so I'll discuss this. The chapter 3 of Oliver Twist opens with a narratorial remark about Oliver being punished for the commission of the impious and profane offense of asking for more. What did Oliver ask for more? I think you can guess because this is a very easy question and you must have read it a lot, this book. Everyone is aware of this book. So the options are more time to play, more food to eat, more books to read, or more money to spend. So what's the answer? So, alright, the answer is more food to eat. It's very famous that Oliver Twist asked for more food when he was working in the factory. So he said, "Please sir, I want some more." This quote is spoken by Oliver, who when given only a small portion of gruel for dinner. Gruel is like a porridge. Very basic thing because these workers were living in very pathetic conditions. So he just asked for more food because he was hungry. And it was brave for him to ask because he was threatened for punishment. That is why the answer is more food to eat. Alright. Now our next writer is Charlotte Bronte. She was very famous, as you know, like our other siblings as well, like Emily and Anne Bronte. So this is a quote from her famous and revolutionary novel, Jane Eyre. It is, "I am no bird, and no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will." This is also the theme of her book, Jane Eyre, because the protagonist is an independent woman who thinks not from the heart, but from the head. So Charlotte Bronte was born in 1816 and she died in 1855. She was a British novelist and poet as well, but mostly her novels are famous. Her father was an Irish Anglican clergyman. Clergyman means he was associated with the church. Emily and Anne Bronte were her younger sisters, like I mentioned. They were also quite famous. Emily wrote the famous Wuthering Heights and Anne Bronte wrote The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Charlotte was the eldest and only surviving sibling after their deaths because these two died very early. Although they were younger than Charlotte, but they died early, so that's quite tragic, I would say. And she left school because its poor conditions affected her physical health. So Charlotte didn't like school much, but she left it because she was getting affected physically because of the school. And she wrote under the pseudonym Currer Bell. Why she wrote under the pseudonym, I will explain it to you. Because during that time, the works and books written by women were not taken seriously. Because women were confined to the four walls of the house, to domestic chores and traditional things. So it was not expected from women to write intelligent things. So only books written by men were sold properly and sold highly. So that's why she took this name. It is not a feminine name, so that the sales of her books would not be affected. So that's why she took this decision to take upon a pseudonym. And she developed strong independent female characters, explored social issues such as class and gender inequality, because during that time, during the 1850s, women were not only considered for traditional and domestic work. So itna nahi hota tha ki that they would go out and earn money for themselves or do some tasks that were traditionally done by men. So those things were not considered during that time. Imagine now. So during that time, women were not considered to work equally to men or just beside and next to men. So she questioned all of these things in her book. So her first work which was published in 1847, Jane Eyre. It's a novel and it was published in 3 volumes and 38 chapters. And this work, The Professor, is also a novel. It was published in 1857 after her death. As you can see, she died in 1855. But the interesting thing is that this book, The Professor, was written before Jane Eyre. But it was rejected by publishers when she first gave it to a publisher. It was not, received by the publisher very interestingly because they didn't like it. And they said that it might not fare well in the market. So they rejected it during that time, but it was published after her death. So Jane Eyre is a gothic romance, first person narrative, and a Bildungsroman. Bildungsroman is a kind of work which, covers the protagonist's journey from childhood to adulthood. So that is what Bildungsroman is. And in first part of the book, which is set in Gateshead Hall, Jane is treated cruelly by her aunt Reed, who she lives with, because she lives with an aunt, just like in Cinderella and all, they have cruel stepmothers. So she had a cruel aunt. All right. So she lived with her, but she didn't like that aunt. Then she went to study in Lowood School, and there she made her friend Helen Burns, who died later on. But this friend had a strong influence on Jane, because this girl said that she believed in religion and she believed in Christianity, and even though she was dying and she was suffering, she instilled a kind of Christianity and sort of Christian spirit in Jane also. So Jane also became very religious because of her sayings. Then she was employed after she grew up. She employed as a governess by Miss. She was employed as a governess by Mr. Rochester. This is a guy who lived in Thornfield Hall, and when she was working there, he left for some time, and she realized during his absence that she loved him. But later on, when they decide to marry, Jane discovers that he was married to Bertha Mason. Some other woman is here. Love triangle, as you see in Bollywood movies. So we later on get to know, as the book progresses, novel progresses, we later on get to know that this woman was Rochester's ex-wife who had gone mad, and she was living this whole time in the attic of the house where she was working, which is Thornfield Hall. So in the end, a lot of things happen. Jane leaves Thornfield Hall, she meets her cousins and all, and then she gets some, money also, generational wealth. She comes back, and then they realize their mistakes. Rochester realizes his mistake and he confesses and everything, and then they eventually marry and they have a baby boy. So this is the story of Jane Eyre. But what's different about this book is that it has themes of feminism. It put forward the idea that men and women are equal. In this book, Jane is considered a very independent woman, and she does not marry Rochester simply because he had a lot of money. That's why I mentioned that class distinction in Victorian society is also a great theme. She also had money in the end, generational wealth, but she only married him when she realized that she felt independent with him and without him. So she only married for love, not because she wanted to gain some monetary things from his income or wealth. All right. So this is how it was revolutionary during that time, and that is why it developed a reputation as a naughty book for going against the patriarchal constructs of the 1800s. Just imagine, more than 200 years ago, women writing such books with independent characters. Even during these times, women face a lot of discrimination in workplace. Just imagine during that time, Charlotte writing such a revolutionary book. How strong she must be and how brave she must be. And this book also has religion as a theme, like I mentioned in Helen Burns. It puts forth the idea that faith is rewarded. Because Jane loved God and she believed in God and Christianity, she was in the end rewarded with a good and happy life with a husband and a boy. All right. Now these are some facts about Charlotte Bronte and Jane Eyre. So when the book opened, in the starting of the book, Jane is 10 years old in the beginning of the novel. Rochester is a Byronic hero. What is a Byronic hero? A moody, melancholic, rebellious character due to an internal conflict, named after Lord Byron, the romantic poet. All right. So Lord Byron was also, in his personal life, he was kind of moody, melancholic, and he had internal conflict. He had lots of affairs. That's why this, archetype of this character, these kind of characters and heroes is called Byronic hero. And I think you must have, come across such characters in Bollywood movies also, that they are suffering from something from deep inside their mind, but they don't show it openly, and they treat the woman badly and all that. I think Animal would be kind of a Byronic hero, the character in Animal, but it's controversial a little bit, so we won't get into that. But you must have seen these kind of characters in a lot of movies also. That's what I'm trying to say. Then The second edition was dedicated to William Makepeace Thackeray. This book's second edition was dedicated to this man who wrote the famous book. Which book? Vanity Fair. And while the novel is not a complete autobiography, the text elements are heavily influenced by Bronte's real life, such as her faith in God. As I mentioned, Jane was also very religious, and Charlotte Bronte was also religious, and I think it's natural for her to be religious because, just like I mentioned, her father was a clergyman. And in 1966, Dominican British author Jane Rees published White Sargasso Sea, a post-colonial and feminist prequel to Jane Eyre. So here in this book, Jane Rees talks about the life of Bertha Mason, remember, the ex-wife of Rochester. So this is about that woman, the life of that woman. If you're interested, you can read it. It's quite interesting, I think. Then, Clergy's Daughter School at Cowan Bridge, a harsh institution that later served as the model for Lowood School in Jane Eyre. So Charlotte used to, study in this school, Clergy Daughter School. So she took this as an inspiration, and she mentioned this, and she, painted this school as Lowood School in her novel, which is Jane Eyre. All right. Now, this is something interesting that I came across, so I thought just I'll share it with you guys as well. So this is a miniature manuscript dated 1830. See, 1830, written by Charlotte Bronte when she was 14, just 14. Imagine, and it looks so cute, all right. This small book. It contains over 4,000 words on 19 pages. So she was very creative. See, during childhood also, she wrote this small book, and she fit 4,000 words on these small 19 pages. And then this is a previous year question. To which of these boarding schools is Jane sent to by Aunt Reed? The options are Lowood School, Hailsham School, Abbey-Mount, Greyfriars School. I just mentioned it in the last slide that this school was based on a real school in which Charlotte studied. I think you must know. So the answer is Lowood School. Now the last writer is Alfred Lord Tennyson. So this is a quote from his famous poem In Memoriam, AHH. It is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Amazing, right? So Alfred Lord Tennyson was born in 1812 and he died in 1870. He was a British poet and poet laureate from 1850 to 92. So poet laureate is a person who writes for the crown and is mostly present in the court of the king or queen who are reigning during that time. So he was a very big personality because of it, and he was a poet laureate during these years. Then he published his first poetry collection was published with his brother Charles, which was poems by two brothers in 1827. Then in the same college, in Trinity College where he went, in Cambridge, he joined Apostles, a secret society that fostered intellectual and philosophical discussion. So, in these big Ivy Leagues universities, there are these secret societies that people participate in, and they are members of these societies, and they have been going on from years now. So he was a part of Apostles. Then in this same college, he met his friend Arthur Henry Hallam, upon whose death he wrote In Memoriam, AHH, in 1850. So he was a very good friend of this man, and when Arthur died, he died due to hemorrhage in his brain. So he died very young. So it affected Alfred Tennyson a lot, and that is why he wrote this poem in the memory of his deceased friend. And the recurring themes of Alfred Tennyson's poems are nature, love, loss, like I mentioned, and the passage of time. Some of the works that I mentioned here are The Charge of the Light Brigade, which was published in 1854, which commemorated a disastrous battle during the Crimean War. So this is mostly for the crown. He wrote for England, because he was employed under Queen Victoria, remember? So that is why he wrote this, because there was a war during that time. A lot of soldiers died. So to commemorate their memory, he also wrote this poem. Then this other poem, Idylls of the King, 1859 to 1885. So it was written during this span of time. So this is a cycle of 12 narrative poems that retell the legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. You must be aware of this. This is quite famous, and this is a mythical, legendary, book about King Arthur and his knights. And this is a medieval times story. So this is very important in literature, as a lot of people have written and taken, inspiration from King Arthur's stories. So this reflected Tennyson's deep interest in myth and medieval themes. So the poem we'll be covering today is Ulysses, which was written in 1842. So this poem is based on Odysseus from Homer's epic Odyssey. So Homer had written an epic Odyssey, which covered the 10 years travel of Odysseus, this person who was returning from after the Trojan War had happened. He was returning to his home, which is Ithaca. So in Odyssey that was covered. So Tennyson has taken this theme from Odyssey, and he has named his character Ulysses, which is a Roman name for Odysseus. So this book was written in blank verse in the form of dramatic monologue. So what is a dramatic monologue? It is a poetic device where the lines of poetry are written as if spoken by an individual who is addressing another. So it is like a poem when a person is speaking and they're speaking to an imaginary person, but we are not able to hear that person. So they have a conversation like a dialogue. But despite the fact that we never hear the addressee, we only hear the person who's speaking. We cannot hear the person who it's been spoken to. Alright? Next, Ulysses has returned to his kingdom from a long journey after the Trojan War, like I mentioned. However, he feels dissatisfied and disinterested with his domestic life. He wishes to go back to his adventurous life. So the thing is, he, fought for a long time during that war. It went for a lot of years, the Trojan War. And when he comes home to his boring, ordinary domestic life, he feels frustrated and not satisfied, because Ulysses was used to all the adventures that he, came across when he was coming back to his home. He fought a lot of monsters, a lot of people in the war. So now when he comes to his boring, ordinary, monotonous life, he feels bored and dissatisfied. So this is a line that he says in the poem: "Come, my friends, it is not too late to seek a newer world." So in this line, we can see that he wants to seek more adventures, more fun, because he is not, satisfied and contented with this ordinary life, his ordinary home life. And the last line, which is very famous of this book, it can even come in exams, it might have also come in exams, is: "Made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield." So he was made weak by time and fate. Why? Because he fought for a lot of years in that war, and he, took a lot of years to come back also. So he was aging naturally, like we all do. But he was strong in will. So the themes are resolution and heroism in the face of adversity. As we discussed, he faced a lot of adversities in war and during sea when he was coming back to home. So it shows his resolution and heroism. And then it also shows this difficulty in moving forward. Why? Because he was not happy with his life, like I said. So he found it difficult to merge with this life, to accept this life. So these are the facts about Ulysses and Alfred Lord Tennyson. So it was written shortly after the death of his friend Arthur Hallam. This explains the theme of loss, meaninglessness, as Tennyson was going through the same. So his best friend, when he met in college, this friend Arthur Hallam, he died very early. So that is why these themes of loss and meaninglessness, ki life mein kuch nahi hai, he suffered a huge loss of his best friend. So that is why he wrote. So he wrote this poem Ulysses shortly after his death. So that is why we can see these themes of loss and meaninglessness. Also, this is a fun fact. Due to the negative reaction to his collection poems, which he wrote in 1832, Tennyson stopped publishing anything for 9 years, So he was so worried about getting negative reaction for his poems, this collection, that he, because he got scared and didn't want any more negative reaction or mixed reaction, so he didn't publish anything for 9 years. And then this is also something that bothered him a lot. So, due to his family's history of mental illness, Tennyson had a lifelong fear and fascination of the same and its effects. And indeed, Tennyson himself was prone to periods of depression and lethargy. So his, family had a lot of people who were suffering from mental illnesses and epilepsy also. So he was worried that he might not get those, diseases as well. So because of, just thinking about all of these things, he also got depressed and lethargic because of it. Then this is during his time in college. Tennyson was awarded the Chancellor's Gold Medal at Cambridge for one of his first pieces, Timbuktu. And then this is something about Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria wrote in her diary that she was much soothed and pleased by reading In Memoriam AHH after Albert's death. Albert was a husband. So even though he wrote this, poem for his friend, it was a poem about his friend and how he died early, and Tennyson was grieving that time. So it had themes of loss and grief and meaninglessness. So this poem was so comforting to Queen Victoria that she wrote that she was much soothed and pleased because she had also lost her husband Albert. So this also helped her in moving on. So the previous year question that we are discussing is Tennyson's Ulysses is a poem expressing the need for going forward and braving the struggles of life, a dramatic monologue, a morbid poem, a poem making extensive use of satire. So these are the combinations that you have to see. So we have to see what the poem is actually about. So is it about the expressing the need for going forward and braving the struggles of life? Right, it is about that because he was frustrated and he wanted to, seek adventure. Is it a dramatic monologue? It is. Like I mentioned, it is a dramatic monologue. It is a morbid poem. Morbid means it is very, low in spirit. I don't think it's low in spirit because he also, says that we should come and seek adventure. So it's not, low in spirit, I would say. A poem making extensive use of satire. I don't think it mentioned anywhere that it made use of satire. It's not about satire. So the answer is 1 and 2, which is option D. So we're finally done with all of the 3 writers, and these are some tips from me, from my personal experience when I cleared this exam, which I wanted to share with you. So the first point is make ample use of the previous year question papers, at least of the last 10 years, because you get to see what kind of questions can come. There are a lot of questions in statement, assertion, reason. So with the help of those questions, you can know what kind of questions will come in your exams as well. So it is important to cover those and practice those. Then this is something which helped me a lot. Try to read the author background and social conditions of a period. This helps in understanding the purpose of some works written during this time, and it helps in identification also. So sometimes, when you read about the economic background, social background of a work, of a time, it helps in, remembering about the works also, because those works were written during that time, and those situations will always be mentioned in such kind of works. Like, for example, if some books were written in 2020 during COVID time, so if people read it without knowing about COVID, future generations will read it without knowing about what COVID did to people during that time. So it will not make sense to them. So I think it is better if you read about social conditions also. Then make use of elimination method by eliminating absolutely wrong options from the question. This narrows down the options and makes it easier for you. Alright. Then do not take paper 1 for granted. I've seen a lot of people not, giving a lot of attention to this paper, but it can make and break your overall score, and it can help you score a lot of things if you, give some time to paper 1 as well. So keep that in mind. And lastly, do not forget to be confident. You can do this. Study well. Study for a long time, because this exam is very important to you. Study for good hours, but also be confident and don't be scared. All right. Thank you so much.